Stalin's regime is history, but it still stirs bitter memories in nearly every Russian. The truth of what happened in the labor camps was revealed in Alexander Solzhenitsyn's book Gulag Archipelago. It was first published 35 years ago. Solzhenitsyn died in August, but his literary heritage lives on. RT's Medina Kochneva explains.
35 years ago, the first publication of Alexander Solzhenitsyn's Gulag Archipelago shook a generation and the Soviet authorities to the core. They banned the book, a grim chronicle of the experience of the author and thousands of others sent to Soviet labor camps. It took him 10 years to finish the 3-volume work. But the writer himself paid a high price for his efforts. Accused of treason by the authorities, Solzhenitsyn was expelled from the Soviet Union and exiled to the West. The book was to win him, however, the Nobel Prize and a return to Russia as a hero after the fall of the Soviet Union. Many people back in the Soviet Union kept special bookshelves to hide forbidden literature. Sometimes people would even cover books with paper to hide what they were reading inside. Having a copy of one of the Solzhenitsyn works could get you in big trouble then. But even today, when it can be openly read in public, this book still provokes a deep and intense reaction with its devastating portrait of life in the Gulag. However, there are people who criticize the book. During the Gorbachev era, many secret archives of the Gulag labor camps were opened. History professor Viktor Zemskov was one of the first to read the files. He undertook research on several camps, but criticized the work of Solzhenitsyn for exaggerating the numbers sent to the Gulag.
The book was really directed against the regimes of Stalin and Lenin. The influence of the book outside the Soviet Union was much larger than within the country. A lot of people had so many problems at the end of the 1980s, when it was eventually published in the Soviet Union, that many didn't even notice it. But it did have influence, of course.
Most Gulag camps were located in extremely remote areas of northeastern Siberia and in the southeastern parts of the Soviet Union. Alexei Predilov, today a fit and a healthy 81-year-old, is one of the last few survivors of Stalin's gulags. He was only 16 when he was accused of political crimes and was sentenced to 7 years in the Gulag. He ended up in 7 different camps and then served a further 7 years in exile in the Russian Far East before being allowed home to Moscow.
At the end of school, my friends and I started to publish a student newspaper. The authorities decided that many of the stories and poems we published in it were anti-Soviet. I got sent to the Lubyanka prison at just 16, and I came back only when I was 30 years old. I can say that conditions in the camps at that time could differ. I've been to many, and I've seen a lot.
The memory of the Gulag system remains devastating, with many in Russia today touched in some way by its cruelty. Over 14 million people passed through the camps between 1929 and 1953, with a further 7 million being deported and exiled to remote extremes of the Soviet Union. Perhaps its everlasting historical legacy, however, is provided by the Gulag Archipelago. And that could only be provided by the immense bravery of its author, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, to collect the stories of the victims and let them live on forever from the pages of his book. Medina Kochneva, RT, Moscow.